now. There, I just added in there as my rapidly aging face. So if you'd like to see, as well as hear, what happens in this program, please do. Please don't do it if you're driving. But if you're an office worker, by all means. Also, you can see audio and video on the Alpha Media website. That's Alpha Media Fort Dodge website. No sports report today. We have Rob Jones off today. He'll be back Monday, and I look forward to having him back on Monday. Rob is always a great presence in the hallway. He does outstanding work in his broadcast career. I hope Rob sticks around, but somebody with his talent, somebody will hear him and hire him away. I don't know why he's not in a much bigger city now, making much more money than he's making here. A young man his age, of course, especially. Most of us who work at the radio station are from here, or I grew up in Algona. I've lived here in Fort Dodge 40 years or more, so that's a big thing with me. And during the 1980s, I roamed around the country a little bit, trying to get more money and trying to progress in my career. I lived in North Carolina a couple of years, lived in Arkansas shortly. I got fired down in Arkansas. No, I didn't say anything rude. The program manager was leaving. He mentioned he was going to Richmond, Virginia, but a high school friend of his needed a job, essentially. And so he fired me after just a very short period of time and gave his high school friend the work I was doing. I was pleased to see that shortly after that, like 2 or 3 months later, he moved to Richmond, Virginia and got fired himself. So that's good, but radio can be like that. It's certainly no job for a married man with a child as I had at the time. We came back here to Fort Dodge and stayed, and I've been happy with that decision ever since. I did live shortly up in Lone Rock, Iowa, a tiny little town in northwest Kossuth County. That was after my wife died, and I went up there to hide, essentially. But I was glad. I've been back here in Fort Dodge now 13, 14 years after that short hiatus. And again, that's, this is my home. I have a tombstone out to Memorial Park Cemetery. I'll be buried next to my former wife, who passed away in '98. And this is my home. I feel very glad to be a Dodger, and just love Fort Dodge and love the state of Iowa. And that was reinforced last night during the Field of Dreams game over in Dyersville. I've been to Dyersville several times. Of course, I had a girlfriend in Dubuque, which is a great town, and I was hot-footing it over to Dubuque every chance I get. And being a baseball fan who read Shoeless Joe, the book that Field of Dreams movie was based on. By the way, the movie followed the book pretty well. And I was just enchanted by that book. I mean, it hit every sentimental bone in my body. My love of baseball, my love of rural Iowa, father-son relationships. Too much really was made of the father-son relationship in the movie, but maybe they had to have that for dramatic effect. But the whole thing was about this one man's, Ray Kinsella, his passionate belief in baseball. That's what the movie and the book were about to me. And his amazing wife in the book and in the movie, who stood by him as he did these crazy things. Plowed up a bunch of his corn, built a baseball field. And this was this was back in the 80s, I remember now, when there were several movies out and some reality here in Iowa that our economy was crashing. The rural economy was crashing. People were losing their farms. It was very sad. There were some suicides. Guys grew up on farms and had never known any other kind of life, and maybe lost a family farm that had been in the family for 3-4 generations. They couldn't take it. It was a grim time. So part of the movie was that the title character, the main character, Ray Kinsella, Kevin Costner, fought through, kept his dream for the love of baseball. And he believed there would be a way for him to keep his farm and his beloved baseball. And that's the great speech by James Earl Jones, that people will come because they love baseball. I'll try to call it up on YouTube a little bit later on. Great speech by James Earl Jones, written for him, of course. but he, with that resonant, mellifluous voice of his, yeah, just a great movie as far as I was concerned. And to see the Field of Dreams game last night, there it was in a cornfield, and there's Aaron Judge, and Giancarlo and all those guys, the Yankees were there, and the White Sox wound up winning the game on a dramatic come from behind ninth inning, bottom of the ninth, home run. The White Sox were up 7-4. They tied it. The Yankees tied it in the top of the ninth. And then this guy, Anderson, comes in and hits one into the corn to win the game. Wow. That's the way. That is a Hollywood ending. I think that's kind of a corny thing to say most times, a Hollywood ending. But this really was a Hollywood ending. It was like the second chapter of the, or a later chapter of another book by the author, and I can't remember who it was now. But just a terrific book and movie, and certainly the game last night was something to see. And I guess people followed it nationally. It really got to be, because of the sentimentality in the movie, which was a successful movie, of course. They were able to bring that to the screen and then bring it back to Iowa, to Dyersville, Iowa. And it was quite a thing. Kevin Costner threw out the first pitch. Yeah, it was way cool. Dragon boat races tonight. We got to be community minded here. Dragon boat races are always cool. I guess dragon boats come from everywhere. Did I read in the paper this morning? They even come from Houston. There's a group from Houston, Texas, coming up to be a part of the dragon boat races. Lone Tree Revival tonight. I've heard them before. They do all right. They do really well. I'd pay $5 to see them. I'd pay more than that, but it's only $5 to see them tonight at the dragon boat races. So yeah, I'd go if I were you. I'd go if I were me, and I am going. So the fair is going on. Iowa State Fair is going on. By the way, I'll be at the Iowa State Fair, broadcasting live from the Pork Producers tent, and that'll be happening Wednesday and Thursday of next week. I've already got Representative Ann Meyer lined up to go. Greg Hora, surprisingly enough, will not be there, but he's got some people lined up for me anyway. So, yeah, I look forward to seeing Representative Meyer, Cambridge, maybe even Representative Scrappy over there in Calhoun County. Maybe we'll even get him at the Pork Producers tent. That would be cool. So, yeah. Man, there's nothing like summer in Iowa, is there? Dragon boat races, Iowa State Fair. Oh! And again, I'm commanded by Lydia Schuer, who asked me, actually, she commanded me. I follow her orders to the letter. There is going to be an event Wednesday, August 18th at the Vincent House. The Adeline Swain was one of the women working in the women's suffrage movement in the early 20th century. And she was the original owner of the Vincent House. She made a lot of contributions to Fort Dodge and women's suffrage. There will be speakers at the Vincent House starting at 5:30. Sherry Fitzgerald will be a speaker, and Jeremy Ober, a really terrific local musician, will be there as well. He'll be playing music from 6 to 8. Soldier Creek Winery will be on site. There will be tours of the Vincent House available. The Vincent House is 824 3rd Avenue South. 824 3rd Avenue South. It's a historic home here in Fort Dodge. I was unaware of the person of Adeline Swain, so I'm glad I know now, being into history. And again, it seems incredible that women actually had to work and persuade for a long time simply to get the right to vote. But that's what happened. And that's terrific. Let's just say I'm in favor of a woman's right to vote, for God's sake. Yes, a women should. Does that make me some kind of radical, liberal peace freak? Yes, women should be allowed to be human being. What are you? A Biden supporter? No, I'm not. See what's happening? Oh, Joe Biden. Oh, God. Gasoline in the last year has risen $1. Joe Biden is proud of the fact that he is unmoved, according to his own aides. He will not take any steps to protect the people that worked for the United States of America in that long war. 14,000 of them altogether, so they're going to be slaughtered, some of them tortured to death. Biden is unmoved. That's the thing about those icy cold liberal folks who seem so friendly. Barack Obama was that way, but he, remember, they walked right over his bright red line and killed 400,000 people. Obama went on to say that was the smartest thing he'd ever done in his presidency. Bill Clinton and the awful slaughter in Rwanda. Between 600,000 and 800,000 people were brutally slaughtered. A lot of them with machetes, tortured to death, awful things. Apparently, Bill Clinton was concerned about intervention in Rwanda. Not that intervention couldn't have been successful, because it could have been. But he was afraid that his poll ratings would drop, because the whole thing was about the Clintons and their rock star presidency. I know I took that right down the hole there. I was talking about dragon boats and all that good stuff and went right down the hole. But those people do irritate me. They're running the country right now, again, and they should never be allowed to run the country. Absolutely not. Do they still have the butter cow at the Iowa State Fair? I bet they do. They have to have the butter cow, don't they? I mean, it's such a tradition. They don't have the tractors pulling older people like myself around the fair if we get too tired to walk. That was kind of the Iowa State Fair's version of busing around the Iowa State Fair. There has been no reason why given as to why this was stopped. I suppose it's a cost, but how can it cost that much? My God, couldn't you charge 50 cents or $1 to people to ride that tractor busing system that they had at the Iowa State Fair all those years and make it more than profitable? I'd certainly throw $1 in the kitty, so to speak. My Chicago Cubs are terrible. That does not mean I'm considering becoming a Cardinal fan, but I'm going to have to do something else with my sentimental attachment to teams, sports teams, if we're going to continue to do the things that Chicago Cubs have done. They got beat by the Milwaukee Brewers 17-4 last night. 17-4. And that's not the first absolute drubbing they've had since July 31st, when they got rid of their entire all-star infield and got really nothing in return. What's the first baseman's name that took Rizzo's place? Schwindel or something? Schwindel? I mean, Schwindel? Who's that? Duffy's at third base where Chris Bryant was just a few weeks ago. Man, this is some sad stuff. I don't know, but I've been told that the Chicago Cubs don't seem to care about what their fans think at all. I don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to get back to the Iowa State Fair. What is your favorite thing to do at the Iowa State Fair? A lot of 4-H people they like to hang out in the sale barns. Understandably, they're not the sale barns, but the livestock area. And man, they have chickens and ducks. I mean, if you're a Midwesterner, you've never been to the Iowa State Fair, you're missing what Iowa is all about. Really, you are. People from everywhere come. They have old tractor shows, all kinds of things. The WHO radio people in Des Moines used to, I think they started the storytelling thing. No, that was Frosty Mitchell. Yeah, guys that get up on a stage and tell stories. That used to be a great thing to do around the farm, around the campfire. I don't know if young people with their tablets and iPhones now, when they gather around the campfire, if they do anything like that or not. Maybe they just, maybe they just, text. I'm glad I'm not part of the texting generation. I was glad that I wasn't part of the MTV generation or the video TV, because you lose. I try to convince my son of this. He used to watch rock and country videos. He'd actually believe the singers were police officers or whatever they were. But back when there were just records on the radio, I identified a particular place that I was at when I heard that song, a particular girl that I dated, or maybe didn't date, just had a crush on. That was the baby boom lifestyle, and I'm glad I was one of them.
support and answer questions when you need us most.
Wow, that sounds so macho. How you doing there, Janice?
I'm fabulous. How about you?
You are fabulous at all times. I know that. Janice Valentine is an attorney here in town with Valentine Law Office, PC. She practices primarily in workers' compensation and personal injury. There is no fee for first consultation. Janice Valentine is at 515-955-5544 or email jvalentine@valentinelaw.net. She's at 415 the Boston Center, 809 Central Avenue, Fort Dodge, Iowa, and at www.valentinelaw.net. So, Janice, it's been a couple of weeks since I talked with you. You got busy last week and couldn't come on. And I'm glad to have you back on. Very glad on this very beautiful day.
Yes, my apologies for last week. Sometimes we think we're in control, but we're just not.
Well, yeah, you don't make a lot from being on this radio show either, as I recall.
I have been waiting for my case.
You've been waiting for the big one, huh? Me too. Next Wednesday, we will honor the life of Adeline Swain, somebody I didn't know about, and I pay attention to history. I wish there was more local history available, but there really isn't. Adeline Swain was someone who used to own the Vincent House, and she was involved in women's suffrage in the early part of the 19th century. She fought for one of the people who fought for the right to vote for women. And there's going to be an event this Wednesday at the Vincent House from 5:30 to 8. Sherry Fitzgerald will be the speaker from 5:30 to 6, and Jeremy Olber will rock the house after that with Soldier Creek Winery and stuff. If you're looking for something to do Wednesday evening, next Wednesday, this might be the place. This might be the place to go. How did it hit you when you were little, just a little girl, and you found out that that our country was in existence for over 100 years and women didn't have the right to vote? So I assume you're in favor of women having the right to vote.
I absolutely yes. I think that goes without saying. I don't think it's something that really occurred to me, and I appreciated it fully. One, until I started voting.
Yeah.
At 18, that was one part of that. But even then, it didn't hit me as much until, hearing more things when I was in law school about, the challenges just women had in general. I just grew up on a farm with my sister and my mom and dad, and there weren't girl jobs and boy jobs. There was just work to be done. And so I was, I guess, a bit naive to the division in our world, not just our country, but in our world as to how women were treated. And so, I can't tell you a specific moment in time when that happened. Just that it didn't hit me until later in life because I just wasn't exposed to that. And I'm grateful for that. I'm very grateful that I can say that it was later, and when I say later, I mean college time, where I figured out that the world didn't see everybody the same.
Well, I know that men thought they were doing the right thing. Paternalism was in full force back then. And they really, really believed that a group of white men, Christian white men, with their compassion and empathy and business acumen and that sort of thing, should be the ones who decided what was going to happen to everyone in our country. They believed themselves to be benevolent, and they believed themselves to be the protectors of women. Now, that's all fine. That's a nice thing. As a man, I understand that sort of thinking. I think it is a man's job, if he is married especially, to be a good husband to his wife and support for his children and daughters, and all of those things, of course. But there's something amazingly condescending in that thinking now. And I was never exposed to that sort of thinking when I was a young man. By the time you and I both came along and were growing up, women had the right to vote. And as you say, they could be practically anything. Although I will say, in my high school graduating class, all the smart and cool girls became either nurses or teachers. There was one lawyer in my class, female lawyer, a girl who went to law school. I believe she still is a lawyer out in Virginia. But you don't see that now. As a matter of fact, most of the law schools, like 57, 58% of the major law schools, most of the new entries every year are women, are young women. And I believe that's the case now with medical schools. So the idea that that women shouldn't have the right to vote really seems like from another, not only from another time, but from another world, for God's sake. I mean, when you wanted to be a lawyer, I mean, there was no discussion as to whether that was a proper role for you, was there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, was it really?
That there's some
Your grandparents did, yeah, but they're really from another time.
Right. But it was a discussion. But in terms of me getting into school, no. I don't think that was a consideration made by the University of Iowa. It was based, my understanding, it's based on grades in their LSAT scores. And somewhat, whether you're in state or out of state, I think they have some ratio that they use for that. But yeah, I didn't give it a second thought that, you know, my gender would somehow prohibit me from being a part of that. My class was actually the very first University of Iowa law school class that was one woman more than men.
Oh, really?
That close to 50-50.
Okay.
So, you know, that's kind of a time period there. But, you know, the interesting thing is what I've seen in my career is while we may graduate out 50-50, that's not how it works in the practice so much. And it's certainly not how it works in partnerships typically. There's just individuals that ascend to the top of especially larger law firms are largely male. And, you know, a big reason for that, at least what studies have shown, is that many times females have to take a period of time to have children. And that impacts females in the workplace much more than it does males for a myriad of reasons, you know. But the reality of it is men can have children and it doesn't really move the needle much on their trajectory in their career. That's not always the case for females. That, again, that's not 100% as to their achievement, but that's typical in our profession.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the University of Iowa. A number of law school applicants to the University of Iowa told me over the last 20 years that a young white male has a lot of difficulty getting into the University of Iowa Law School because law is the language of power. The university understands that, and they want a very diverse law school population at the University of Iowa. Have you heard the same thing or not?
You know, there was whispers of that, and at the time I was there, which that people said maybe that's why our class was more female, which is a little bit concerning to me. It's like I didn't get in because I was a female. I got in because I had the grades and the LSAT score. When you added those together, which was their formula, I exceeded the formula.
Which, as it should be, by the way.
I'm sorry?
That's exactly the way it should be.
Yeah, I do think we all benefit though from having diversity. You know, and again, I've never been one that wants to move forward or if you want to get anything because of my status as a female, but I certainly don't want to be, you know, denied something because of that status. So,
well, you know, who knows? You know, who knows? Maybe some older people look at female professionals and know, well, I'd rather have an old white guy. Maybe the old white guy drinks too much. You know, you never know if the old white guy. But I wanted to, the University of Iowa, apparently, and I get a subscription, online subscription beyond the Iowa Press Citizen, the newspaper in Iowa City. And I get that because I subscribe to an online Des Moines Register. It kind of comes together. But anyway, they have a Truth and Reconciliation Committee now in Iowa City because the University of Iowa campus, all of it, sits on ground that used to be Native Iowan ground, American Indian ground. And they're in the
middle. All of Iowa then?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, you know, some of the, again, to say that as if there was some sort of ownership. The American Indians had really no concept of land ownership.
Right.
That was long before. Again, the tribes, especially in the Midwest, the Sac and Fox were primary here in Iowa. They really didn't have any concept of land ownership. If they wanted to move, they moved. If they wanted to stay where they were, they stayed where they were. But now, of course, in our highly legal structured country that we have, there are demands for reparations for the University of Iowa through the Truth and Reconciliation Squad by a Native population. I don't believe that they are affiliated with the university. I believe they're affiliated with the city of Iowa City, who set up this Truth and Reconciliation Committee after the death of George Floyd, the horrendous death of George Floyd. What do you think of these sorts of legal efforts to, as far as reconciliation? Do you believe that the current owners of the University of Iowa, which would be the state of Iowa, owe money to the Native Americans in perpetuity, because that's the claim that's being made? You are now, state of Iowa, through the University of Iowa, you are now tenants on our land, and you must pay us for as long as you're there.
Well, these are just almost, to me, unanswerable questions.
They are.
Well, to the extent that we really do owe them. We made an agreement and we reneged. You know, that's the whole point. I mean, we said we can give you money. The government said, well, not you and me, but the government said we'll pay you to move, and that didn't happen. So does the University of Iowa owe that money specifically? I think that would not really resonate with me. But as a country, we do need to recognize that we were crappy. I mean, that's not a good part of our history. And similarly, you know, and I think this is maybe where you're going to go next, is, you know, with slavery, we made some agreements there that we didn't follow through with. So, you know, is there something owed? Well, yeah, actually there is something owed. What that looks like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not smart enough to figure that out.
Well, I bring up these difficult questions to you, Denise, because I think you can handle them. It appears that you can. Well,
again, I can handle it. I just don't have the answers. You know, I don't know again what that looks like, but to pretend like it didn't happen is not correct either.
No, that's not correct. But I've said this before on the air, and you'll probably think less of me when I tell you this, but I do believe that there are winners and losers in history. And we just happen to be fortunate enough, Denise, not because we're better looking. Well, maybe you're better looking, but I'm not better looking. But as a white person, I do have benefits for being white in the United States of America. And I hold no shame with that whatsoever. The same thing applies to every area of the country in this world. The Khans, 1,000 years ago, rampaged across what is now China and into Russia. As a matter of fact, the one thing the Russians are still fearful of today is an invasion from China, because in their deep memory, in their collective memory, they remember the Mongol invasions into across the Caucasus into their country. Sometimes we have to understand that some things are simply not fixable. I cannot go back 150 years and make some black person's life who was alive then better. Nor do I necessarily owe a black person anything today. I don't really believe that. Is there something that has to be done? I've talked with a number of people about this, Denise. When my son was growing up, he used to have black little kids come in the yards and play with him, and they were like kids everywhere. They were happy, and they had a sparkle in their eyes. And by the time they were teenagers, they were kind of hardcore hoods, frankly. And some of them have been off to prison, But the point is that the life went out of their eyes. Now, I don't know what, and I can only attribute that, Janice, to their being black and the other kids being white. I can only do that. And I went on a rant. That's my job, going on rants. But I know that a number of years ago, we had some middle-aged women, white women, who were caught embezzling, either from a company or from the county or from the city. And they cried all over the courtroom. Some of the women embezzled like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the judge, an older white male, you know, and tears can sometimes work on those guys. The judge just sent them home. However, around the same time, there were 2 busts here in Fort Dodge, 18, 19-year-old black kids, and they had a few coke rocks or crack rocks in their pocket that they were selling. They did 10 years. 10.
Yeah. Our justice isn't always blind, unfortunately.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and I kind of remember that time period. I was relatively new to the town, if I recall correctly, but that isn't fair. That isn't justice. That isn't what justice should look like. But unfortunately, we've got issues that we have to confront in our judicial system, particularly when it comes to incarceration of people of color. It's not, once again, that's not a good look for us either. We know crime is done, and especially drug-related crime is done equally by both, you know, I shouldn't say all races, but at least between whites and blacks, it's equal. And yet, those that get charged and or even just arrested are certainly, just the majority end up being people of color.
Yeah. Well, I keep looking for you to give me the ultimate answer, Denise, but it's just not going to happen, is it?
Well, no, not today anyway.
And
and when I say that we owe something, I mean, I don't want anyone to feel like what you commented on. You don't have to apologize for being white. Of course, no one needs to apologize for their skin color, but I do think we need to recognize that the world has treated us differently because of our skin color.
right. Well, more than that, the actions of our ancestors. Yes, history is brutal. I mean, thousands and probably millions. Well, I know millions of people were killed because of who they were. I mean,
Right.
my
Look at the
parents.
Holocaust.
Look at the Holocaust, right? And that may happen again. I don't know. It's I know this is too morbid a topic for us to be talking about on a beautiful day like this. Did you catch the Field of Dreams game last night?
Was that an incredible experience?
And just beautiful. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I mean, I get goosebumps now just talking about it again. But yeah, I was so impressed with the way they pulled that off. And this comes from somebody who's not really a huge baseball fan. In fact, my husband was shocked they even wanted to watch it. And I'm like, guys, I mean, for sure I want to watch the start. And then the game itself was pretty darn exciting. And I thought the players, they looked different. They looked like they were in awe of the whole situation too. You know, and these guys have seen how many ballparks and pretty cool ballparks.
All the best.
And this was just a very, very cool experience. And I think, obviously, I think good for our state, and I think we presented a good look to the country, and it sounds like it's going to be repeated next year. So that's exciting for us as well.
It was such good television; it had to be repeated. I mean, it was a perfect night in Iowa. The corn is at its height. It was so green against the background of the sunset and the players'
Well, and
uniform.
you did hear about the cornstalk issue, correct?
What was that?
Well, they had that windstorm come through a day or two before, or maybe both days, and so they had to prop up each stalk with a rod.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I don't know how big of an area that was, but there was a large area where they had to take each stalk and tie it up. And I'm in my mind, again, the farm girl comes back at me, but I'm thinking,
Sure.
Whoever's in charge of counting those rods better be a really good counter, because that combine is not going to like rod. That's some serious repair.
That's some serious repair, is right. Yeah, there's not a farmer in the world that even wants to think about that. I mean, really, there isn't. I mean, old farmers used to, if they were mad at each other, they'd go out and tie a couple of big rocks and corn stalks in their field, and then when the combine came around, it would tear up their combine, which is kind of a malicious thing to do, but you know, that's what it is.
I
Denise?
didn't know farmers did that to one another. That's nice. That's worse than not nice. That's bad.
Oh, that's pretty twisted. Yeah. Oh, they probably did it in the county you grew up in. You just never heard about it. You know, because
sure didn't.
there's not really a way you can prove it. You know, well, somebody tied a rock to my corn stalk and now my combine's all screwed up. Well, you know, I think it was such and such. Well, you know, you're a lawyer. You know, they don't take that. They don't think that. You know, you have to be caught kind of red-handed. You know,
Right.
of course, we have
Right.
videos in cornfields now, so and everywhere else,
We know back in the day that those cameras weren't running, so.
No, God, no, absolutely not. So, you get any golfing in this summer or not?
I have been golfing. We've had some hot, our league is on Tuesdays. We've had some hot Tuesdays, but you know, it's golf. You're supposed to sweat, right? I mean, that's
Part of the deal.
golf in summer.
Yeah. Do you have a women's league
Yeah,
out at the country club or?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
All
Well,
right.
there's leagues at all of them, I know, but I just happen to just take the time to do the one league. So.
Sure. Well, you got to get out of the house. Is your husband back in town? I know he's.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I know he
Oh,
lives in
yeah.
Arizona part time, or you both do. I don't. Well, that's good.
Yeah. How about your summer? How's your summer going?
My summer went pretty well. You know, I'm still weak as a result of COVID, but
That's what I wondered. You know, I was just talking with somebody else whose wife had COVID in February, and it's still not got sense of smell and taste 100% back. And when they take walks, she gets pretty winded pretty quickly. So that's not good.
I've heard today that if you had the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna, which I did get, there's a booster shot coming. They have now, the FTC has now recommended a booster shot. But you know what, Denise? I'll go right over there to Daniel Pharmacy and get a booster shot. I don't have any problem.
At this point, isn't it just for immunocompromised people, I think? Or maybe they've extended that. I'm not sure. But I'm with you. If they say go get a booster, I probably won't be first in line because somebody will beat me to it. But I'll be right there with them. I have no hesitancy. After all we've seen these last 18 months in terms of the deaths and the long haulers. I don't want any part of it.
Well, Tim Kreinbrink was on the show last week, I think, and he made Tim has had COVID, yeah, but he's not going to get vaccinated. And he made a very good argument. It wasn't paranoid or crazy. You know, the media tries to make everybody who doesn't want to get the vaccine is totally insane. He made a very good argument that getting a vaccine was a personal decision. And I always support personal decisions. But I'm not agreeing with him. I'm going to go get the vaccine. I got vaccinated. I'll get vaccinated again because I got vaccinated.
Yeah, you know, my issue with this decision is, I get it's your personal decision, but when your personal decision can kill me, you know, that's not good. Then you're making my personal decision for me.
So what do? We all mask up and go back inside and no golf or anything, or what do we do here?
No, I don't think that. I mean, I want to avoid that. I mean, I think the more we get vaccinated, we will get rid of these variants. I mean, there aren't polio variants because guess what? We all did what we did and we all got vaccinated. And so I think until we decide that it's important enough to stop this whole thing so we aren't shutting